Hello! Welcome back to part 2 of my redesigning series. In this series, I've been redesigning some old OCs I have from back when I was only about 14 years old. If you missed part 1, the link is in the card above as well as in the description. You might want to watch at least the beginning of part 1 so you can understand the backstory behind these characters. Since I gave the whole spiel last time, I'm gonna jump right into redesigning characters. So the first character we'll be looking at this time is this rowdy fire boy, Enco. Enco is kind of a hothead. This probably has something to do with his fire abilities. He's kind of a fight first, ask questions later kind of guy. He ends up being our main character Kumori's best friend pretty quickly. The two of them get along pretty well. I decided to go with a fighter for Enco's class. He definitely embodies the fighting personality. So to start off, I designed his hair. Originally, all of my characters had extremely long hair when they became animals. This was because I didn't want them to have both human ears and animal ears at the exact same time. This also was because I did not know how to draw ears. My heads didn't really have skulls, so I didn't know how to attach them to the head in any way. In all my redesigns, I decided to keep the human ears and the animal ears in their designs. I now don't really see a problem with it as much as I did back then, and it also helps me connect the heads better. So I went more towards Enco's original human form and gave him very short hair in this one. I still made it a little messy, but I kept it super short. Next was on to designing his outfit. Fighters have some armor, but it's not all over their body. It's kind of very minimal armor. This is probably so they can move quicker and aren't bogged down by heavy material. So I started with the shoulder gauntlets since that seems to be the biggest part with armor. I then went through a few ideas for having more armor on his body. At first I was going to give him some sort of chest plate thing, some armor that connects to the shoulder pad things I gave him, but I was having a really hard time understanding this armor. Couldn't figure out how it would realistically attach to his body, so I ended up just scrapping the whole chest plate idea completely from him. I then went back to my good old belts and I gave him a few of them. I made one cross over his body from his shoulder to his waist, and then I added a few more around his waist. Even though there's no weapons that they use, I'd like to imagine if he did have a sword that the one across his chest would actually hold his weapon in place. After adding all the belts, I gave him some gloves. These I wanted to be more like gauntlets than leather gloves. I wanted to give him more armor parts than just cloth like the other characters have had. Now for his bottom half, a lot of these fighters have these like long robe kind of things going on. So I gave him that robe idea, had it split in the middle. I also kind of drew in the basics of where a pattern would be. And then was on to his shoes. Again, I wanted more armor stuff for him, so I gave him armored boots instead of the leather ones a lot of my other characters have been having. He definitely is starting to have more heavier armor than past characters. I then needed to add in his ears and tail, so I ended up redrawing his bottom cloak thing in order to fit a tail underneath. The tail is going to be coming up from under it, so I needed to have it look as if the tail was affecting the cloak since it's coming from underneath it and not just that it's coming from some weird hole in the outfit. Alright, with that, I finished the sketch of Enco, and I am gonna go line him, and we'll come back for his colors. Okay, so I filled him in with a basic blue color. I then went right into picking his colors. So Enco is always lighter skin, and I wanted to keep that lighter skin going on with him here. I like to think that he lights so many fires that it also affects his skin tone. I also had some lore where if he got hurt, the way to heal him is that he had to eat fire. So if his body is actually running on fire, I wouldn't think he'd have dark skin. I think light skin definitely makes more sense. So next was his hair color. Enco is a weird one. His hair was blonde, but his ears and tail were originally green. he wore a hat. He wore this beanie hat all the time, even in his animal form. So when he had the hat on, the green ears worked better because his hat was green. So his green ears could peek through the hat and it wouldn't look weird. But I've scrapped his hat from his fantasy design because he wouldn't have a beanie if he was in a fantasy world. So I decided that I was just gonna make all of him blonde. So his ears and tail became yellow as well instead of green, and then his clothes I decided were going to be the green part. So he still has his original colors, just his ears aren't popping out as a completely different color than his hair now. I also made his eyes browner. Most of my characters originally had red eyes. This is because a lot of the Pokemon some of these were based off of all had red eyes, but now I wanted to diversify them way more. So I gave him brown eyes. Next was his outfit. I picked a basic forest green color, kind of looks like the original color I had for him. And I just filled in the big cloth cloak in this green. I then picked a silver for all of the armor parts since it is all going to be metal, and made it all the universal same silver color. Next was the belts. I made them a dark brown. I then also colored where his hands are that brown since he's wearing gloves underneath his gauntlets. Also filling in the belt buckles the same silver. Again, like I said last video, I like to keep my palettes as limited as possible. If I have multiple leather parts of an outfit, I don't want to use multiple types of brown. So say like here I have the gloves and the belt, and let's say his shoes were also leather. I don't want to have 3 different browns throughout his body. 1, it's a lot of colors to keep track of, and 2, it doesn't unify the whole look of the character. By keeping all of the browns the same brown, it helps to unify the design way more than say if you had a bright orange and then a dark brown and then like an almost black brown color. It's way too many colors on one character, where having less colors will unify a character more. Then I went into coloring his undershirt and his pants. I went through a few color choices until I decided a lighter color would work a little better on this one. Since I knew his green cloak was gonna have much darker colors on it, I wanted to give his undershirt areas more of a lighter look so they aren't clashing with the front part too much. Then it was on to adding an accent color. I picked a darker green to keep up with his green look, and I added just some sort of pattern going on his front area. I then went back to his hair colors. I went through a couple oranges and yellows. I was super unsure about what color I wanted since the whole tail ear thing being yellow was such a new thing for this character. I finally settled for a bit more of an orangey yellow than I originally had. I kind of really like this color. I personally don't really like yellow. It's too bright of a color usually for me. So having this more darker orangey but still yellow kind of color looks a little better. I then drew on some fire coming out from his hand. Very simple. Didn't really think too hard about how to draw this fire. And then it was into shading. And I'm just gonna speed on through this and we'll come back when it's done. Alright, so here's Enco then. And here's Enco now. Definitely a big change from his original design for sure. If I draw him human, I'm still gonna give him his hat. It's definitely the one thing that made him different than any other character I had. I did not have anyone else who ever wore a hat. He was the only one. So it made him a bit special, and I don't want to get rid of that completely. So if he's human, he'll have a hat, but in his animal form, it is gone. Okay, next up is one of my favorite characters. She is the cool older sister character of the whole gang. She's actually Enco's older sister. They were both adopted by this old wise man and raised together. Unfortunately, in the originals, I didn't really include her that much in the comics I made, which now I'm kind of upset about because she is by far the coolest character I came up with. So her name is Shima, and she is this cool, laid-back, but badass kind of fighter girl. She's the oldest of all the characters, so she definitely was way more together than everyone else. She already had kind of an interesting design idea where I had multiple hair colors going on in her hair and a pattern going on in her outfit. Her design was originally based off the Pokemon Linoon, so she ended up becoming a raccoon. She had this thing with her hair where her side of her hair like became a darker brown color, and I really like that, but I think I can execute it better now. So here I've already drawn a pose for her. She controls Earth, so she has some rocks floating up by her finger. I gave her kind of a sassy, badass stance going on. Gave her some big boobs. Something I struggled with a lot in my original drawings was differentiating body types. All of my characters were the same flat-chested, skinny people. I didn't really know how to draw anything else, but even when they were girls, I would draw boobs basically where their neck is, and that's not where breasts go. They didn't have, their necks were just directly attached to their chests. There was no space between them. So in more recent years, when I've drawn these characters, I've made Shima have a larger chest than some of the other characters. Not only is she older and more mature than everyone else, but she's this powerful, badass lady. So for her hair, like I said, I didn't like some of what I was going for in the original design. So I kept her middle part and her two side swept bangs and her long hair. It'll become a bit more obvious when I color it as to the idea I was going for her hair. Right now, it's just kind of gonna be basic long hair. So I decided that the cool, aloof, fighting type Shima was gonna be a paladin, which of all of the characters, she is the most armored of all of them. No other character has as much armor. I struggle a lot with armor. I've been getting better recently since I've been drawing a lot of Fire Emblem. So I've been kind of learning through drawing that. So in this, I heavily referenced the paladin drawings I had found. First was the shoulder gauntlet coming off of her. A lot of paladins have one small shoulder pad and then the one huge one on the left side of their body. So I drew the small one first because I knew I was going to struggle coming up with how the large one would look in this perspective, especially because her hair is going to be covering a bit of it. I then gave her like a scarf going on, since some paladins seem to have that, and it's later going to attach to like a long cape. Next, I played with a few ideas for her armor. I was gonna first give her some armor on the elbow area, but with the position she was in, I was having a very hard time getting it to look correct since her arms are bent here. So instead I just gave her crazy long gauntlet kind of armored gloves. Then I kind of placed in where the other shoulder thing was gonna go. It's a bit odd in my sketch, it just kind of looks like a weird bump, but I think I kind of fleshed it a bit better when I lined it. I then detailed a bit more of the gloves just so I would remember this is armor, not leather. Next was her bottom half. I wanted to give her the two big side things of armor, which a lot of paladin armor has like crazy heavy armor on the middle chest waist area. I gave her that front claw thing like a few of the other characters I have, just to keep adding some more cloth parts to her armor since I later gave her this big cape. Next came the shoes. I knew I wanted huge armored boots for her, so I kind of looks like a fish, but I drew this basic knee pad thing going on, and then kind of sketched in where the different parts of the armored boots would be. So in this sketch, I actually completely forgot to draw her tail, but when I line arted, I realized I forgot to draw her tail, and I draw it while I'm lining, but it's there. I didn't completely forget. So now I'm gonna line it, and then we'll come back for colors. Alright, so I've lined her and I filled her in with a basic blue color. Now I'm gonna start coloring her in. So first up was her hair. She's gonna stick with the whole brown she had going on before. So I picked a kind of muted lighter brown because I was going for the idea I originally had. I will be adding in some different colors later, but her hair is going to be a light brown and then it slowly becomes a darker brown. Next up was her skin. Shima was always black, but when I drew her when I was young, I had only a single brown colored pencil. So if I wanted someone dark skinned, everyone looked the same. And this brown I had wasn't the darkest of brown colors. It was a pretty light brown, and I also didn't press down hard, so it was very light. So I tested a few skin tones. At first I tried a lighter color and it was bad. I didn't like it on her at all. Then I went darker, but it was too close to her hair color, and then I went darker again, but it was also again too close to her hair color. I wanted to make sure you could tell where her hair stopped and where her skin began. So I went even darker, and I was definitely liking this way more. She had never been this dark before. She was always much more tanner and her skin blended way too much with her hair. But I decided to go much darker for her for the first time, and I really like it. I think her with dark skin is so much better than her being tan or whatever I was doing before. She definitely pops way more when she is way darker. So the color that I picked here is not the color I actually end up on. I'll be changing her skin color again, don't worry. Next, I went right into the shading of the hair. I wanted her hair to have this light to dark brown gradient, so I did a very quick, rough kind of way of doing it, of just lowering my opacity and coloring it in all willy-nilly. I also added a little bit of it to her bangs and her ears just to unify her whole look a little more too. Her eye color has always been the most unique. It was always a light blue eye color. Like I said, most of my characters had red eyes, so her light blue was definitely much more of a unique color than I had with other characters. For her tail, it originally had black stripes on it, but I didn't really like it. It was too different. Like, it didn't match her tail with the rest of her hair. So I decided to use the brown I used for her darker hair parts to make the stripes on her tail, so she becomes a raccoon. Next was the armor. Again, with armor, I just went straight silver. I didn't really think too hard about the coloring for the metal. I filled in every part that is armor with the same silver color, so it's all a uniform look. Next was her accent color. Since her original outfit was just brown, she was just all brown, I wanted to add something a little different this time. I didn't want her cloth to just be brown again. It wasn't a fun color to have, and it just doesn't make her very unique. So since her eyes are this light blue color, I thought that would be a nice look for the rest of her, and I filled in cloth or parts on her with a light blue, which I will later change to more of a dark teal color, just because I know I have so many blue characters. There's another blue character that I haven't gotten to yet later. I thought teal would be a bit more unique for her. Next was her kind of chainmail parts. I'm not exactly sure how to describe that part of her outfit because it's not exactly chainmail. It's just kind of like cloth with chainmail over it, I guess. I went through a few ideas as to what it would look like. I had lighter line art with a black fill, and then I will now later change it to a dark fill with an even darker line art over it. Again, with keeping everything uniform, since I used black on her pants and her arms and whatnot, I kept it on her buckle as well. Okay, so with that, I've finished coloring Shima, and now I'm gonna go shade it, and we'll zoom on through that together, and then we'll come back when she's done. Okay, so here's Shima then, and here is her now. I still love Shima. She is by far one of the best characters I ever came up with, and I am devastated with younger me for not including her more in the original story. She is so cool and has so much potential. I just didn't use her, and that makes me sad. But now I will draw her more because I think she's pretty awesome. On to the last character of this video. This is Ancoku. She's a bit of an oddball in some of my characters. She went through a few phases where I wasn't even gonna include her in the story. My friend who helped me make some of these characters and come up with the story just didn't like her at all and just kept trying to get me to cut her from the story. I listened to her and I kind of lessened her importance a lot. And then a couple years ago, I did something similar to this where I brought these characters back from the dead and kind of drew them a lot more again. And I found myself really liking Ancoku and just really loving to draw her. She is super peppy and fun and a cutesy girl. She loves her friends and she loves having fun and she loves being a big help to everybody. She was like obsessed with Kumori, like crush obsessed, would do whatever he wanted. I think that was a big reason my friend didn't like her. She thought maybe she was a bit too nuts for boys. This is the only character that I double classed. I made her a druid, just like I made Purasu a druid, but this one is much more of a fairy. Ankoku's animal is a crow, so I wanted to connect her with air nature since her ability is to control the air. So I went with kind of like a fairy druid kind of look. So I drew a basic pose for her already. I think one of the reasons I thoroughly enjoy drawing Ancoku now is that I have made her much fatter than she used to be. Like I said with Shima, I did not know how to draw bodies that were different than one body type. I could barely draw a skinny person. I wasn't gonna be drawing a fat person or a muscular person anytime soon. Now that I kind of understand body types a bit more than I did back then, I think of all the characters I decided to redesign, she's the only one I picked that is of this kind of chubby size. I have some more muscular characters that I design, but she's the only one who's just cute and large and a cute little round friend. Okay, so I'm gonna get right into designing her. So this one, I went her outfit first because I kind of already knew what her hair was gonna look like. She always had the most unique hair because I didn't really have many girls with the short pixie cut. So I knew what I wanted to do for the hair, so I went right to the outfit first since that was gonna be the newer thing for me. Using the kind of pixie fairy I had as a reference, I decided to give her this like big, long, flowy cloak thing going on. She has this middle area that is kind of like a big leather belt thing, and then her top half is the cloak and then her undershirt underneath it. I first went with like super long sleeves, but it became very hard to tell what was a sleeve and what was part of the bottom half of her cloak when I started to sketch. So I ended up shortening the sleeve length. I made her bottom cloak very round. I think it kind of goes back to her whole personality being this round, bubbly kind of character. So I kept that with her outfit as well. For the part underneath her cloak, I gave her a skirt. I haven't had that many characters with dresses or skirts yet, and she definitely is more of a dress kind of wearing character than pants. I also just gave her very simple leather boots. So just add a little bit of something. I gave her this little middle area. One of the references I was looking at had something kind of like this. I then shortened the sleeve length and gave her underdress this long sleeve part, but didn't make it super flowy so you could tell the difference. Then finally was her hair. Like I said, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, so she has very messy windswept hair since she's a bird and she controls air. So keeping her hair a bit on the messy side made sense. She still has super short hair, very much the little pixie cut. It's a bit harder to tell in this pose how short it is just because she's kind of looking up and we're looking at her from underneath a bit more. But it's very short. It doesn't even come to her shoulders. And then just gave her very simple little bangs. Didn't think too hard about how they would look. And then I finally put in her cloak. I then sketched out a bit of a pattern. I wanted to, again, keep the circles. So I just made a bit of bumps as to where I was gonna color in a pattern. And with that, I finished Ancoku's sketch. So I'm gonna go line it and then we'll come back for colors. All right, so I've filled her in with a basic green color, and I'm just gonna go right into picking her colors. So first off was her skin. Her whole color theme is pink, so I wanted her skin to also be pink. So I picked a very light pink color. I then went into her hair. Her original pink was much more saturated. As I've stated before, my eyes do not enjoy saturated colors as much as they used to. So I picked like a lighter pink, but I thought it might be a bit too on the gray side. It was maybe lost too much of its colors. So after I tried a darker pink, which I also didn't think worked perfect, I ended up with a nicely saturated light pink that didn't distract way too much. Ancoku was also a character that had red eyes, so instead of giving her red eyes again, I ended up giving her pink eyes so she could again continue being part of her pink theme. But I made them a bit darker just to call back to the whole red-eyed thing. So next was her outfit colors. I'm gonna be making her main outfit colors pink, or within a pink kind of purple family. I went more purple here first, which I actually end up changing because I don't think it fits her correctly. It's a bit too purple and it's a bit too desaturated. I then went into the undershirt, which I went for a more orange color. Her original outfit had orange pants, since I thought that would represent like the feet of a bird, how their talons tend to be kind of orangey. I actually end up lightening this up even more. So after coloring in everything with a base color, I started to experiment with the colors a bit more. So for her undershirt, I went lighter and then darker again, and then ended up actually liking the lighter areas more than the dark. I had parts be light while some were dark so I could see them next to each other and actually really see which one I liked more. I then colored her middle area with an orangey brown. I end up keeping this for the bottom half. I keep it a bit more orange, but I make the top half that's supposed to be leather around her much more brown. So here's where I decide I do not like the color I picked for the cloak. It's too desaturated, too purple. So I brighten it up a lot and then I saturate it way more, and I come to actually really like the darker saturated color on her. She is more peppy, so having grayer toned colors just doesn't seem right for her. Next was adding all of the patterns. I brought a light pink out to make the bubble pattern that I had originally sketched. For the shoes, I just matched the colors with the leather area I had up top so I could unify her outfit. I then used a kind of peach kind of color for the accent on her underdress. And with that, I finished coloring Ancoku. So I'm on to shading now, and we're gonna zoom through this until she's all done. with that, I finished drawing Ancoku. So here's her then, and here is her now. So that ends part 2 of my character redesigns. These got a bit different than the first 3. We got some armored characters and some new body types in here as well. Also getting into my winged characters, not so many of my land-based characters. In the next video, I'll jump into 3 more redesigns, and then there's only 3 more after that. So there's 2 more videos coming your way. I do hope you like these videos. I have a fun time talking about character designs and how I go about it. So this has been a very nice time for me to record these. Like I said last video, I would love to do other stuff related to this. I have some ideas for videos I can do about characters I've already made and talk about some designs I already have. But until then, let me know if you have any ideas as well. I'm totally up for any sort of suggestions you may have. Like, comment, hit the bell, whatever it is people say. Have a good day, and I'm out.